嗨，大家好。
Hello, everyone, and this will be
我们再
according.
我们再等1分钟好吗？今天的 movie trailer 是《Prince of
Persia.
Persia》The Sand of Time movie。对，所以说大家能猜出来我们今天的主题是什么吗？今天的主题就是
The Greco-Persian Wars. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to our second class on Greek civilization. Today we will be mainly concerned about the Greco-Persian Wars, a series of great battles against Greco against Persian. Greco standing for the alliance of Greek city-states, and Persians, of course, standing for Achaemenid, the first Persian empire. The Achaemenid Empire is founded by Achaemenes, and it has a line of very great Persian kings, including Cyrus II, also known as Cyrus the Great. But we will be mainly concerned about Darius the First and Xerxes the First. These two.
Perhaps
and maybe
talk a little about
Artaxerxes the
yes.
First. And as you guys can see, the last one on this, family tree is Darius II, because at that time he was killed and Persia was conquered by Alexander the Great. So first of all, before we get into all the details about fighting, let's talk about why Persia would ever go as far as to fight this tiny patch of land, Greece. This was the tiny part that threatened Persia, while Persia is this big. So, do you guys have any guesses on why Persia would ever fight Greece? Any guesses?
Greece is so tiny.
Greece is small and is covered in mountains.
Like a bunny, but the Persian Empire like a giant elephant. Why?
You guys know why?
Why they are fighting for something.
And of course, Greece is mostly covered in mountains and it's very hard to grow crops. Take Athens, for example. Most of Athens's resources come from other countries. They mostly purchase their resources instead of growing them themselves. Because as you guys can see in these two pictures, Greece is covered mostly in mountains, and it is very hard to grow crops on mountains. Okay, so if nobody knows why Persia would fight Greece, it's okay because we will talk about why they actually did that soon later. It will make sense. So first of all, we get most of our information from Herodotus, who wrote Historia, a book. He lived from BC 484 to BC 425. His book is now translated and you guys can probably find it in the library, and it holds a lot of information about the Greek and Persian wars. So let's look at our previous timeline. As you may see, the start of the Persian War was at BC 500 and it ended at BC 449. Can you guys see who which persons have lived through the Persian War? Do you guys know who lived through the Persian War on this diagram?
No one knows.
It's very obvious. Okay, well, if no one knows, then I'll have to say it myself then. First, there is Pericles, the great Athenian general that basically quarantined every Athenian in the wrong spot. And Socrates, our famous philosopher who died because he asked too many questions. They both lived through the Persian War, and some of them even fought in them. Okay, so let's move on to how the Persian Wars actually started. The Greco-Persian Wars lasted from BC 500 to 449. However, the early years was mostly infighting, not of Persia did not invade any part of the Greek mainland. Instead, there was a series of events named the Ionian Revolt. First of all, we can see here is Miletus. Miletus is a city that originally was very loyal to Persia. However, the king of Miletus was very powerful and a really good king. So Persia was very wary of that because if he gets too powerful, Persia was worried that he would revolt because most of Persia was actually conquered, not really taken care of. So the king was then brought to the capital, Susa here, and was not allowed to leave. So instead, the king's son-in-law, who now rules Miletus, decided to revolt. And originally, their own motive was just to get their power back. It wasn't for anything very great and all.
I think you forgot the Naxos.
Oh, yes. Just these people.
Militaries, they conquered the Naxos for Persian Empire, but he did not succeed. So he felt very afraid. He think perhaps the king will kill him or let him go from his country. So he decided to retreat.
And so that led the Ionian Greek city-states, which were the ones that were conquered by Persia and under Persian control, to decide to revolt. Of course, as I said before, the Miletus people, they just want their power back, nothing of like freedom and such. However, they said that in order to get the sympathies of the other Ionian city-states to revolt. However, these small cities did not stand a single chance against the Great Persia. So they went to ask Sparta for help. Sparta at the time was the most powerful Greek city-state. However, Sparta was an isolationist. Do any of you guys know what an isolationist is? Anybody know? Any?
You mean like isolation, like the kind of isolation in diseases and stuff?
No.
Lydia,
do you have a question?
Lydia, you can speak. Lydia, I see you hand up, so you can. Okay.
Well, okay.
Isolation.
So isolationist means when a country is isolationist, that means that they don't get entangled with other people's affairs. So basically, they stay out of other people's things and they do what they do by themselves, because Sparta really doesn't want to fight against Persia. Sparta actually, you might not believe this, but Sparta is actually pretty lazy.
Not lazy, just
doesn't want to get extra trouble.
Yeah.
So Sparta redirected them to Athens, who was happy to help. Andy, do you have a question?
I was asking, like, didn't Sparta like battle the Athens?
Yeah, that was later in the Peloponnesian War, after the Persian War ended and Persia was defeated.
Let's continue.
Okay. So Athens ended up helping the Ionian Revolt, which lasted a while until Athens didn't really get any benefit out of it. Athens thought that, well, if I can't get any benefit of it, why should I continue? So Athens just stopped helping. And so the Ionian Revolt was quickly crushed by the Persian forces. But even though the Ionian Revolt was crushed, the Persian king at the time, Darius the First, was not very happy because he has seen that Athens and the other Greek city-states might possibly be a future threat to his kingdom. So he started to make an expedition towards the Greek mainland. So let's see these two routes. This is, well, of course, Persia. So they went this way. Persia has both a land army and a navy. So the red would mark how their army walked and how the blue would be how their navy traveled. They decided to stick close to the coast because there would be less storms there. And, well, their luck wasn't very good because their navy encountered a giant storm and many ships sank and they were sent back. On the other hand, the army, they didn't have much problems and they went over here. They conquered Macedonia, but then was stabbed in the back by Thrace. So they went back and conquered Thrace, but of course they still lost many soldiers, so they went back and regrouped, and that was a failure for the first expedition of Darius the First.
How about the levy?
Oh yeah, I said the navy encountered a storm and went back.
Yes.
And do you have a question?
Not lucky.
Like when Rome tried to encounter, I think it was another country. Rome wanted, at first they didn't have the army, then they stole the idea from the enemy ships, then they built it. Then when the war was about to end, they kept sending their navy over there, but then they met storms and and then a huge navy lost, many people died, and then they were like, now we're not going to give up, and they sent another one and then another one, and then in total over 1 billion people died and lots of ships died, and then they kept rebuilding navies, and then
so much.
You know a lot. Yes, that's a very fun fact and a really great thing to know. However, at this time, Rome was not founded yet, and Rome happened after a while. Okay, so now we are going to, so after the first expedition of Darius the First failed, he thought that maybe I could, conquer them and subjugate them without actually having to fight. So he decided to send messengers to each one of these Greek city-states and to ask for water and soil. Do you guys have any guesses on why he would do this?
Why
would he ask for water and soil? Yes, it is a very complexing question, and I didn't get at first too, but this is a very highly symbolic meaning. Okay, if nobody knows, then I will explain. So he asked for water and soil mainly because this represented their land. So if they gave up water and soil, that means that they have surrendered their land to Persia, which, of course, many city-states were willing to do so because they weren't very strong either, and they did not want conflict with Persia. However, only 2 city-states decided not only to not give water and soil, and also to kill the messengers. So do you guys have any guesses on who the 2 city-states that refused water and soil would be?
Is them like either Thebes or something, because they're pretty close to the lakes.
Very close. And I hope about Thebes, I hope you guys remember Thebes from our last season where we talked about tragedians. Do you guys remember that there was a tragedy in Thebes called Oedipus Rex? However, that's just a small fact. But of course, Thebes didn't have a strong army either. So Thebes wasn't one of them that had actually like a grudge against Persia. The 2 city-states that had fought back were Athens and Sparta. Athens pushed the messenger down a cliff, while Sparta pushed the messenger into a well. Poor messengers. So if you guys ever have a chance, don't be a messenger.
Why? Why these two states refuse to give the soil and the water?
Because, well, of course, they don't. First of all, they don't want to be subjugated by Persia. And second of all, they actually have some strength to fight back.
Yeah, I think because Sparta is the leader of the Greeks, they are very proud of themselves. They're
very arrogant.
Yes. And the Athens. Lydia,
do you have a question or answer?
May I go to the washroom?
Sure, you can go anytime. Any?
I was asking, like, I think, like, I noticed that both of the poor messengers got cut, died, took a deadly end in their life. They both fell from a high place, and why would they push them down the well? Why don't they just, like, for example, shoot them out of the arrow and go back to where they came from, or, for example, send them back?
Because killing the messenger would be basically a declaration of war against the other country, because it would be highly offensive to do so. Okay, let's continue, because we will be talking about many wars and this will take a long time.
Yeah.
Okay, so there is his second expedition would be this way. He didn't choose to cross the Aegean Sea at first was because it was actually very stormy. However, this time it seems that he has no choice but to do so. He went to Samos and then rode to Naxos and then to Athens. He killed and slaughtered and trampled every city stay on its path, with the exception of Delos, because there was a rumor that Delos was the birthplace of Artemis and Apollo. However, I don't think that's very true, because according to most myths, Artemis and Apollo, they were born on Ogygia, which is an island that would move. It was floating on the ocean.
Don't judge. Don't judge the Greek.
Well, I don't think it's very true, but still, lucky for Delos.
Yes.
Okay, so now we are going to introduce two important characters in the story. One a hero, one a villain. Let's talk about the villain first. The villain was Hippias, the last, not the last, but the closest Athenian.
It's the last trillion.
Yeah, the last Athenian tyrant. Because, well, at that time, much before that, Athens had already reached the state of democracy and kicked Hippias, who was the tyrant, out. And so Hippias went to Persia and gave many, many evil ideas to the Persian king against Athens. For example, to raid many Athenian ships and to sell Athenian people into slavery. So this was before the war. Athens and Persia were still at peace, and Athens requested that Persia stop listening to Hippias because Hippias was a traitor. But Persia refused and said, well, he's a very nice guy. You guys should take him back. But of course, he's a tyrant, so no. So that made Athens have more hate Persia more.
Mm.
So now let's introduce another hero. At the time when they had soon arrived on the coast, Athens knew that they didn't have enough strength to beat Persia alone. So Athens sent Phidippides, their best runner, to Sparta and to ask for reinforcements. However, Sparta was in the middle of a festival and could not come until the moon was full. And that was not expected for at least 10 days. So Athens would have to hold out. At the time, Hippias had already led the Persians to the plains of Marathon. Do you guys have any guesses on why he would choose to lead them to Marathon and not any place else? Do you guys have any guesses?
Why choose this place?
Any?
Maybe because I see Marathon is pretty close to the water. Maybe push the whole entire water into the river and wash them away.
Yes, that was a really good point, because very close to the water means they could store their fleet there, so they could escape. However, that wasn't the main part of it. There were two other reasons, and I shall be talking about them now. Well, the first reason was, well, it was actually a very simple reason, because Marathon was Hippias's birthplace. Very small but reasonable reason. However, the better reason was because the Persian army was mainly consisted of cavalrymen, and they rode on horses. And so Marathon is the plains of Marathon, so that would allow horses to better maneuver. But enough about the battlefield. Now let's talk about after Pheidippides came back with the news that Persia would soon fight them and Sparta couldn't come. Athens had 10 generals, and they had to hold a vote whether to fight against Persia right now or stall until Sparta comes. So the 10 generals, they held a vote, and of course it ended in a tie, 50-50, 5-5. And this time a very important character called Miltiades, he was one of the generals in favor of fighting Persia right now. He convinced Callimachus, who was a commander, to vote in favor, which resulted in the vote being 6-5. So they decided to fight right now. However, of course, Athens cannot defeat Persia alone, like I said before. So they had a small kingdom called Plataea help. Plataea was once very bullied by Thebes, and Athens helped Plataea out once. And from then on, Plataea would always help Athens, and they had a really good bond between city-states.
Let's talk about Sparta and Plataea.
Well, Sparta.
当 Plataea 被他的邻邦欺负的时候，他首先是去找斯巴达帮忙，然后斯巴达说我们不方便，然后请你去找雅典吧，然后就雅典正在祭神，但是雅典依然帮助了 Plataea。你把这一段翻译一下好吗？
Well, so basically when Plataea was being bullied by Thebes, Plataea went to Sparta for help, just like how Miletus and the other Ionian states did when they revolted. However, once again, Sparta came up with an excuse not to fight because they were isolationist. But of course, Athens is probably more like the leader of the city-states now rather than Sparta, because Athens actually helped them out. Athens also helped the revolt out. However, Athens quit because, well, it wasn't getting anywhere. But still, Athens actually helped. So that made Plataea very grateful to Athens. And so they started helping each other from then on. Okay, so now let's look at the matchup. Athens and Plataea versus Persia. Okay, so the army was like this. Athens had provided 9,000 soldiers, and Plataea had provided 600 soldiers. Persia had 25,000 cavalrymen and 600 ships. Of course, Athens and Plataea, they didn't have any navy. So the battle began, and well, I won't talk about how they fought that much. I will mainly be talking about the results and the most important parts. Somehow, the Athenians and Plataeans, they disrupted the Persian army by killing many generals, the generals that they sent, including Aeschylus, the tragedian's brother. Of course, Aeschylus lived to write more tragedians. Yes, the commanders. So that disrupted the Persian army lines, and they fled for their ships, which made it easier for them to kill. However, seeing that Athens and Plataea, they had no navy at all, no navy. So they couldn't pursue on the sea, and they couldn't possibly win on the sea either. So the Athenians, they just jumped into the water and clung onto the ships, not letting them leave. And of course, Persia responded by slashing at them, and that caused many casualties. But in the end, it was an Athenian victory, and Persia escaped. Let's look at the casualty list. Athens and Plataea suffered a casualty death amount of 192, which is a large amount, but not as large as the Persian death amount. Do you guys have any guesses on how many Persians died in the war? It can just be a random guess. It doesn't have.
1.
Lydia.
5 billion?
5 billion. I think we
It's too much.
I don't think there is even 5 billion people in the whole of Persia. They had
Remy.
2,000?
a bit more than 2,000.
2,500?
A bit more is a large bit more. Kathy.
10,000?
A bit less than 10,000.
Let's give us an answer.
Okay, let's talk about the answer. So the answer was around 6,400, along with 7 ships that were sunk, which is a lot compared to the 192 dead Athenians and Plataeans. And so that was, even though 192 Athenians died, that was a complete victory for Athens and Plataea. Soon after that, and yes, and we will be talking about the marathon. Of course, we have a modern sporting event, marathon, which is a running event. And because after the Athenian victory, Pheidippides, he had to go back to the town of Athens to tell whether they won or not. Because if they lost, then the Athenian citizens, they would be forced to run away. So he ran back, and he was still tired from before. So he ran back, and all the citizens gathered around him, and he said, "We have won. Athens has claimed victory." And then he died.
But
yes, and so this is why I really respect him, because he said the most important part. Because if it were me, I would probably ask for water first.
I'm so thirsty.
Okay, so let's have a little trivia question. Do you guys know how long is a marathon?
A, B, C, D. Choose one.
Jackson.
A?
N, E.
First, I wanted to say 2 things. First, I think a marathon, it's about like A, and the second thing, I noticed the picture is very inappropriate.
Lydia.
B?
Remy.
Wait, Lydia, what do you say?
B?
Okay.
B. Okay.
Remy.
Another Remy.
A. Oh.
A.
Kathy.
A.
Okay, so now everybody. Jackson.
Jackson is first. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Jackson already said.
Okay.
Okay, so the correct answer is A, 26.2 miles. B would be a half marathon. And the rest were
C is quarter.
yeah. And yeah.
The last one is the longest in the world.
The longest running competition in the world. Okay, let's move on, because we seriously have 2 more battles to talk about.
A marathon is supposed to be 42 miles long.
42?
Oh, I think you're talking about a round trip. Like go there and back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So after that, Darius, he goes back to Persia, and then he immediately goes to Egypt because Egypt started revolting, and then he died of a disease. And then Xerxes the First obtains the throne, and that is officially the end of the marathon. Now let's move on to the second battle, Battle of Thermopylae. BC 480, which involved Xerxes the First of Persia against Themistocles and Leonidas the First. These two were the most outstanding generals, Themistocles being from Athens and Leonidas was the king of Sparta. Okay, so before they started this war, they had an oracle. However, we will go in order first. We will talk about the oracle later. First, Miltiades, the general from before, he dies, and Themistocles obtains his place at 489 BC. Athens finds silver at 483 BC, which gives them a bunch of money. And Athens splits the money for to the 200 most wealthy people to each fund 3 ships for the upcoming war against Persia. Persia also prepares at 481 BC and sends messengers once again to collect water and soil, with the exception of Athens and Sparta. Do you guys know why they didn't send messengers to Athens and Sparta? Kathy, do you have a question from before?
Yeah. Why is the olden like really old times like something BC?
Because that was a long time ago. They didn't have very high technology or very like advanced things. So that was a long time ago, and because we're talking about Greek history, and now Greece is more civilized, and so yeah. Kathy.
Also, why did they name it like British Columbia? Did they do this in British Columbia?
I don't know either. I don't know either. I don't know what their reasoning was, but we will mainly be talking about the past. Okay. So Persia also prepares, and you guys so they didn't send messengers to Athens and Sparta, maybe because they didn't want 2 other people dying, or maybe because nobody would want to die. But the most popular theory was that Persia did not want Athens and Sparta to know about their plans. Okay, now they formed what we call a Greek League or a Greek Alliance. The Greek city-states that elected Sparta as leader, they met at Corinth to discuss whether who will be fighting. For example, but there were like very funny details, such as Argos and Syracuse. One of them wanted to be the army leader, or else they wouldn't join, and one of them wanted to be the navy leader, or they wouldn't join. And of course, Sparta and Athens were both very angry, and they said, "We came here to find workers and helpers, not a boss. We already have a leader."
Have a lot of leaders. Don't want leader, just want soldier and friends. Okay.
This time, Sparta still had a festival again, but of course, looking at the seriousness of the situation, Sparta sent like 300 bodyguards of Leonidas with 1,000 slaves. But of course, why is Sparta always having a festival? But of course, Sparta is highly religious, and so we shall not talk about that. And so Sparta and Athens, they all went to Delphi for an oracle.
Yeah.
So first, to the Spartans, the oracle.
这 oracle 2个 oracle 最开始去祈求的时候都不太好，都是让他们快点逃跑。
Run.
你翻译一下。
To like the oracles both
Sparta
told Sparta and Athens at first to run for your life because you have no chance against Persia.
Yes, but they ask one more time.
They asked another time.
Yes. And the Athens the Delphi gave him another oracle to the Athens, told them a wall of wood
alone shall be uncaptured, a boon to you and your children.
And gives the Sparta is ask them pray for the wind.
Yeah.
So they talk about what is a wall of wood. You can talk about it.
So the wall of wood, some people thought that it would be the Athenian walls because at the time it was made of wood. And they probably thought that it was, unbreakable. However, Themistocles thought that it was probably ships because ships are made of wood as well. And after a bit, that turns out to be true. And the oracle once again advised the Athenians to run away, and said where it says many things about how your men will become women and your women will become men, which is very, very confusing. But it turns out to be really funny later on.
In the letter.
So let's move on, okay? So Thermopylae is over here, the left dot, and on the right dot is where most of the
a cape.
Yeah, it's a cape where many died. Okay, so let's talk about the Battle of Thermopylae. Have you guys seen? There's a movie called The 300 Spartans, which was a story about that, because there were precisely 300 real Spartan warriors. Okay, so let's talk about another traitor. This one's called Ephialtes, and he was the one who helped Persia and betrayed Athens and the Greek city-states. Most of the armed forces waited at Thermopylae, which was a very narrow valley, to ambush. However, Persia was led by Ephialtes on a shortcut, which was guarded by a mere 1,000 Phocians that were that came from a very small town. And well, they didn't even confront Persia and ran away. And Persia didn't even want to chase them because they weren't even a threat. When Leonidas, who guarded Thermopylae, found this out, he dismissed most of the allied forces.
How many soldiers of the Leonidas?
Yeah, he remained with 2,000 soldiers in total, 300 being his Spartan bodyguards, 1,000 being his slaves, and
heroes.
Yeah, and
slave.
and remaining 700 other forces. And well, that lasted for a total of 3 days. They held Persia off, and all of them died. Leonidas also died, and that was he got cut off. His head got cut off, which is really
unusual.
Yeah, he got cut off by Xerxes, and Xerxes usually doesn't do this. So this must mean that he is actually very furious of his loss earlier. This officially marks the end of Thermopylae and is immediately followed up by the War of Salamis. But before that, let's watch a movie. Not a movie, but like a part of a trailer of the 300 Spartans.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, is this scary?
It is very scary. It said under 17 has to be guarded by a parent or guardian.
Yeah, it's not very scary, but there will be like blood and gore and such because it is a war. So
my brother watches a Japanese movie that has like people cutting people's arms off and people slicing people's heads off. Like the blood actually shows it on the walls, and someone's cut off on the wall, and like my brother just shows it in my face.
Yeah, it's very gory.
Like it's not that creepy, but I just think it's disgusting.
Do you guys want to skip it? We can skip it. That leaves more time for me to talk about the Battle of Salamis.
If you want,
we can skip it. If you guys think that it will be probably too gory, you can probably skip it.
I think it's okay.
Okay, so if you guys don't want to watch, you can always close your eyes and put your device to mute, whether it's a PC, iPad, or such.
Mute.
I can't hear it. Me neither. You forgot to share sound. Me too. That person was so dumb. He walked straight into a bunch of arrows.
Let's watch this in silence. Okay.
You forgot to share sound.
Wait, can you guys hear it?
Nope, not
No?
at all. No.
Okay.
No.
Let me reshare then.
Sparta will burn to the ground. 1,000 nations of the Persian Empire descend upon you.
Can you guys hear?
Yes.
Okay.
What should a free man do?
Threaten my people with slavery and death. This is madness. Madness. This is Sparta! We will stand and fight. A new age has begun. An age of freedom. And all who know the 300 Spartans give their last breath to defend it. Spartans! Tonight we dine in hell! Give them nothing, but take from them everything!
Okay, of course, that movie is just for aesthetic, but of course, Spartans, they weren't that, uncivilized. They had regular armor, not just a cape, a helmet, and a loincloth.
And Sparta soldier has a long hair.
Yeah,
and so wear his.
They wear things properly.
Yes. No,
they just do that to show that
clothes.
they just show that
Yeah.
It's just to show that they're very brutal. Okay.
Yeah.
And they have
That's movie.
Yeah, it's just a movie. All right, let's move on. So last but not least is our Battle of Salamis, BC 480, which is Xerxes for the first of Persia, vs. Themistocles. Because this is straight after the Battle of Thermopylae, so Leonidas has already died at that time. So first, because of the loss of Thermopylae, the land army retreats to Isthmus Corinthio, which is near Corinth. If you guys remember Corinth, which is the kingdom that Medea came from. The navy retreats to Salamis, and the Athenians, they move from their town. So they take all their things that they might need, like their pigs, their cows, anything that they need for survival. Some pets, such as dogs, probably wouldn't be brought along. For example, Pericles, who lived during this time, his dog wouldn't be able to come along because the ship was full.
It's so crowded.
Yeah. So after they left, the dog just swam after a ship until when they finally made to the coast. The dog also came on, but eventually died because of exhaustion. Yes, and Themistocles, before he left, he writes on the city walls for the Greek people that fought for Persia, that we are your fathers. Just like you guys originated from us, and we are fighting for your freedom. So don't stop fighting for Persia. Because after they left, Xerxes I, he arrives at and burns an almost empty town of Athens. And when the Greek people saw the message, they didn't react that much at first, but soon the effect would start to take. Now, Persia, there were some Persian generals that gave plans to Xerxes. First is Artemisia, a woman general who we would later talk a lot about, gave plan A, which was to go around on the coast, around like here, and to cut off the Athens supply and to start raiding them, which was a good plan in the long run. But the second plan, which was made by Mardonius, is to attack right here. This was the Salamis Strait, and these were the Athenian and the allied forces fleet. These were the Persian fleet. So, however, not even the whole of Athens had enough food, enough resources to sustain the great Persian army, so they couldn't stay here for long. So Xerxes decided to go with plan B and attack straightly. Themistocles, he had a choice whether to retreat to Corinth and to just forfeit these pieces of land, or to stay and fight at Salamis. Of course, he chose to stay and fight. So Themistocles sends a half Persian blooded spy to lure the Persians into Salamis Strait.
我们要不要再谈一下关于他们为什么会到那儿？ Let's talk about why these Greeks want to fight with the Persian
in Salamis Strait.
Yes.
Well, firstly, because Persia, they have very big battleships, which are powerful, but Salamis is a strait and is very, very small and narrow, so they don't have much places to maneuver. So that would make the Persian numbers a disadvantage to them. So Salamis was the perfect battlefield. So now let's talk about the spy. The spy, which shall remain unnamed, told the Persians, specifically Xerxes I, that Athens is with Persia. We shall welcome you. Come to Salamis, and we shall fight alongside with you. And of course, Xerxes believed him because
Why?
Because there were so many traitors. Look, there's Hippias, Ephialtes, and many other traitors. So because there were so many traitors that led, like you see, Hippias led them to Marathon, which they could have won, except they didn't. Ephialtes led them past Thermopylae, which they won, and so they had no reason to not believe this spy. But that would be their downfall. So Persia sent 200 ships and blocked off Salamis, forming a wooden wall, which is part of that prophecy, or at least in my opinion. This was the wall of Persian ships. And then Xerxes, he sat on a throne on the mountain, like this one. Yeah. He sat on the mountain and observed the battle scene below.
Yeah, the Persian block the sea
and yes, so they couldn't escape. But that also meant that the Persians themselves will not be able to escape in time. Yes. Okay, so from before the message that Themistocles wrote on the Athenian walls started to take effect, and many ships, the Greek commanders on the Persian side decided to just, throw a spear or two and then stop working. It's like, my fight is over. But of course, the other Persians also fought a lot. Artemisia, the one that proposed Plan A from before, was also in this battle and led 5 ships. And we will talk about how she really helped after a bit. So because of this, because that Persia has many big ships, they all crashed against each other, and many Persian generals died, also known as Xerxes' little brother. And this caused the Persian to descend once again into chaos. Artemisia, in order to escape,
It's
she
very
was
interesting.
she was
story.
rocked by a Persian ship, and behind her was pursued by Athenians. So she drove her ship and smashed right into the Persian ships. And okay, so on the Athenian side, Athens thought that she was on their side. And so Athens was, oh, that was great, bro. She helped us so much.
Let her go.
Yeah. And on Xerxes' side, he saw from a very high mountain and he didn't really get what's happening either. So he thought that she crashed into an Athenian ship. So he stated that, oh my God, look at her go. She is so fierce. So in the end, both sides thought that she had helped them, but instead she had smashed one of her own allies,
Yes.
and escaped. Okay, so after that, the whole war was basically sort of like that: big ships slamming into each other because it was too narrow. And so Xerxes retreats, and this, like, a lot of people died because of this, and they go back to Persia. However, on their way back, they have almost exhausted their resources because the Persian army is gigantic. No matter how much resources they take, it probably will only take a few days or a few weeks for them to exhaust them. So once they make it back to Persia, they're like hungry and weak, and they finally get a good meal. And the funny part is,
Eat too much.
Yeah, they ate too much that they were so full that they died because they had ate too much. And that officially concluded the ending of the Battle of Salamis. However, after that, there was another small battle before the end of the Persian Wars. The Battle of Plataea.
Yes，萨拉米斯战役之后，那个薛西斯就离开了，然后他留下了他的另外一个将军继续在陆地上战斗，然后在Plataea，The Battle of Plataea，然后 Plataea 战争的时候，这个将军他其实很厉害，但是他也是运气不太好，被斯巴达人的长矛。就飞过来的长矛扎死了，然后这场战争就结束了。
Oh, another fun fact about the Battle of Salamis, because retreating would take a long time, and Athens, they thought, oh well, let's chase them. And so 15 ships that were a bit too slow to follow up got caught by Athens and were taken into custody. And that was just a fun fact that they had captured 15 ships. 15. Okay, so the Peace of Callias officially ended the Persian War at BC 449. It was a peace treaty between Artaxerxes and Callias.
卡里亚斯是Athens 的一个著名的政治家，然后他就是把他去到那个波斯跟波斯的国王阿塔薛西斯，然后签订了一份 Peace of Callias， 然后结束了这场战争，就是在 BC 449， 然后这个波西战争就正式结束了。你能翻译一下吗？
Because at that time, Xerxes has already died, but of course it was by natural causes, not of war. At that time, Salamis battle had already ended, and Artaxerxes took the throne, and Callias is a very good Athenian negotiator, diplomat, I guess, and they signed a treaty to say that Persia shall not ever invade Ionian or the Persia or the Greek city-states again, and the Greek city-states wouldn't go and bother Persia either. And with that peace treaty officially marks the ending of the Persian War. Okay, so let's discuss. Do you guys know would Athens be considered the one that won the Persian War, or Sparta, or both, or neither? Inyi, what do you think?
At first, when you talked about when they were leaving, the pets, I heard that sometimes when they slaughtered other cities, they chopped the pets in half.
Yeah, that was very, very brutal.
I'd like to see what's inside a pet.
Oh, then you should invent a time machine and travel back and join the Persian army. But of course, it might be a bit gory.
大家可以看一下 Here is the Sparta
Let me
soldier.
enable the here. This is a Spartan soldier, much unlike the movie that we just saw.
Much like the movie.
This is a Spartan soldier, and these are Athenians.
Yes.
Athenians.
Not any.
Does anybody else have a guess on who actually won the Persian War?
大家知道在这个Persian War 之后是谁成为了
最大的赢家？
成为了最大的赢家。
However, of course not Persia, because Persia, well, after the Persian War, 2 Persian kings had died. Darius the First and Xerxes the First. Well, of course, the answer is C, both. However, it will soon turn into D, neither, after we get into the Peloponnesian War. The Peloponnesian War, should I give a little sneak peek at it? So, of course, from before, Athens established an alliance with the Greek city-states during the Persian War, which was that every state, either they send some troops or they would pay Athens to fight for them. And so most, if not all of them, decided to pay. And so Athens used that to fuel their navy. However, even after the Persian War, Athens continued to be a parasite for their money and continue to fuel their navy, which led many city-states to be very unhappy with this tax collecting. And so they went to Sparta for help, because if they don't give them armies or taxes, then Athens would go and bully them and fight them and beat them up.
Okay, that's another story.
Yes. We shall talk about next time
week.
On the Peloponnesian War.
So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Now let's meet again at the same time, same place next week for the Peloponnesian War, the second Greek war, which concerns Athens and vs Sparta.
Mm-hmm. So if you have any question,
you can raise your hand if you have a question.
Raise your hand. Cassie?
Did they go to the war bare feet?
Sometimes, but usually they would probably wear sandals. Not like our sandals, but like those leather sandals. But sometimes, because soldiers, they usually fund for their own equipment. So if they were too poor, then they probably couldn't afford shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Also another question, what are the people doing at the back?
You mean them? The boo?
Yeah, these people.
Oh. Well, those are I'm not very sure myself, but probably I don't know, probably this is like the end of the Persian War, probably they're welcoming them back.
你说这个图是怎么知道？
Oh.
They're probably, look, I think.
Yeah, they're probably just looking, what are they doing over there?
Yes.
Okay, and now we shall officially conclude our second lesson of Greek civilization. Hope you guys have fun and see you guys next time.
Yeah, see you.
Bye.
Bye.